Hello. Welcome to part 2 of my DM journal, where I talk about not only what it's like to be a new DM, but specifically one who has not played Dungeons & Dragons before. Through these videos, I hope to pass along some of these lessons I'm learning so that other new DMs won't make the same mistakes that I'm making. And I also hope that they can serve as a way to encourage people who may not have played before to give it a try. It's been a lot of fun so far, and I hope some other people can be inspired to take it up. I want to begin talking about our second session by going over my homework, the prep work I had done to get ready for Tuesday's game. As I mentioned in my last video, we ended in the middle of a fight, and based on how that fight ended, the party could have gone any of 3 different ways. So I had to actually prepare for 3 different directions depending on what they would take. It was a little more daunting than I had anticipated, but it's something I learned from. I did better next time. I also went through and reread the adventure, the relevant parts of the adventure. We are going through the book that came with the starter set, The Lost Mine of Phandelver. And so I went through and actually made note cards for relevant NPCs, things like quest givers, the kind of people they would meet in town, who they were, where they came from, any quests they had, any information they could provide the party. I also made cards for enemy types, so I didn't have to keep flipping back and forth through the book. Things like goblin, things like skeleton. I made a card that had their stat modifiers and the abilities to just to make the fight go faster with less book flipping. Finally, I also made cards for different encounters. For example, here's one we used for a fight that had 4 different enemies, kind of thugs. I went through and wrote each of the enemies down with their hit points so I could easily subtract them throughout the fight. I also left room to include the initiative order once they rolled at the start of the fight. So I was doing things like that to keep things from dragging, spend less downtime writing things down or flipping through books or looking things up during the fight. So that's what I did to prepare. But as we all know, how the game goes depends entirely upon how the players play. So the game started and they were still in the middle of the fight. They start mopping up the goblins, and the last one flees. I wanted him to flee because it's in the book that he should flee, but I was glad he was going to do that because I wanted the characters to know there's something over there to find. There's something over there they should investigate at some point. But I was not prepared for how the party would react to that. The rogue chased after the goblin, but the sorcerer and the barbarian didn't. They stayed and they investigated the scene of the ambush. I didn't want this to happen. I didn't want the party to separate, and I particularly didn't want the rogue to go off by himself for reasons that will become obvious. But I wasn't going to stop him. I was going to let him play how he wanted to play. He's running, and he trips the first trap. Makes a saving throw, but the goblin puts more distance. He keeps running, and he hits the second trap. Makes his saving throw, so no damage. But the goblin is gone. He's lost in the woods. I had hoped that the rogue would then turn around and go back. He knows there's something to find there, but this chase is over. But he keeps going. He specifically says, "Okay, I'm not trying to be stealthy anymore. I'm just going to run and try and catch that goblin." So he runs. He's sprinting. He sprints right out into a clearing and is immediately surprised by goblins, who all take shots at him. And between the surprise round and the first attack round, he's outright killed. Not unconscious, not bleeding out, he's outright killed. Going back to the other 2 remaining party members, they pack up and they go to town. I skipped any kind of random encounters because I was ready for them to get to town, because that's where their 4th player was waiting for them. We had discussed how he was going to get roped into this, and that's where he was going to meet them. The first stop when they arrive in town is to drop off the supplies. That's the adventure hook. Is they were hired to deliver these supplies to the town, and they go in, and I had the shopkeeper thank them. He paid them for their goods, and I also had him give them 2 pieces of information. One, you beware of the Red Brands. They are a gang of local thugs, and the shopkeeper was telling them to be careful and not get involved with that. I also had him let the party know that he was concerned for Gundren Rockseeker, the guy that had paid them for this job. And also back at the side of the ambush, I had made special mention of the fact that Gundren's body was not there, and that his map case was empty. There was a case there that had something in it, but it had been taken out. And trying to leave them breadcrumbs to get to follow the main story of this adventure. They thanked the merchant and went on to their second stop, the inn. The innkeeper, same thing. He warned them about these Red Brand thugs. The party met the bard. They paid for their lodging, and at this point the game started to drag. The inn was full. I listed several NPCs that were in the inn that were meant to serve as pointers to adventures. There was all kind of side quests, the other places they can go and loot they can find and problems they can solve. But the party didn't seem too interested. They didn't seem too engaged. The sorcerer went up to his room and started investigating the items in his room. The bard just sat there playing. The barbarian sat there listening to the bard. The dead rogue, meanwhile, is trying to roll a new character. So at this point, I decided to bring in a new encounter. This is an encounter they were going to have later. I just thought perhaps it would get things moving if I brought it in now. The party came down and it started to build up. This confrontation. It was about to break out into a fight in the middle of this crowded inn. But the bard, with a great persuasion roll and some clever words, was able to diffuse the tension and have the party buy the party some time. The thug said, this isn't over. Next time we see you, you're ours. But I thought, this is great. I bought the party some time. They'll be able to go out and explore some more of the town, pick up some adventure hooks, and do some more stuff. And to an extent, they did. The barbarian went to go buy a new weapon. The bard kept playing his instrument at the inn. The rogue finished rolling his new character, who then walked into the inn. I had no idea who the character was. I hadn't seen the sheet. I trusted him to roll his character. And I was just excited that all 4 of our players were finally in the game with characters. But here's where things got a little hinky. As you know, we had already lost one party member who ran off alone and picked a fight. I thought for sure that wouldn't be a problem again. But wouldn't you know it, the first place the sorcerer went was the only place that both NPCs had told him not to go. The Red Brand hangout. Alone. So, he failed his stealth check investigating the place, and the fight is back on. The party comes running out, and the fight ensues. The sorcerer makes an attack, but instead of attacking the enemies, he shoots a fireball at the place the hangout that they were in. Rolls a 20 on it, so crit, big explosion, does a lot of damage, catches the place on fire. So naturally, they're all upset. Not only is this the same sorcerer one who was being very belligerent earlier and was picking a fight with them in the inn, he now blew up their house. So in the ensuing fight, the sorcerer was killed. I couldn't justify pulling another magical cleric Deus Ex Machina, because this this consequence was a direct reaction to the sorcerer's choices. I couldn't justify undoing that. So it turns out the rogue's new character is a monk, and this he actually pulled a really neat trick, something I wasn't expecting. He knocks the last enemy out, ties him up, and he told me when the enemy wakes up, what he's going to try and do is persuade this thug and say, here, take our friend's body, take the sorcerer's body to your bosses and let them know the problem's been dealt with. He's the one that nobody liked. He's the one they were all angry at. So you're going to look like a hero, and they'll leave us alone. I'm really interested to see how that plays out next time. So at the end of the session, in order to avoid the same problem I had last time of having to prep 3 different adventures, I took the time to ask the players what they wanted to do next, so that I knew what direction they were going. The answers actually weren't too terribly helpful. The bard pointed out that he doesn't really have any interest in the story. He's happy just barding it out in the end. The monk, a little more heroically, says he is interested in continuing this fight, but he doesn't really have any interest in the actual main story. He doesn't know Gungeon Rockseeker. He wasn't a part of this thing. He doesn't know anything about this empty map case or Goblin Ambush. The only character who does is the barbarian, who was only doing this adventure at all because his character's brother was the sorcerer, and now that connection is gone. So I turn this over to you. I'm curious to know what y'all think I could have done differently, or how I should have handled that differently. I would like to close by going through and picking up some of the things that I learned through this last session. First off, the first thing, not rushing the players. When the party was kind of stalling in the inn, perhaps I should have just let that go a little while longer. I was worried about things going too slowly and then not doing anything. So I went ahead and moved to fight, and that fight was going to happen the next time they walked out of the building, but I made the choice of bringing it in. And I think maybe that was a bad move, just because I should have let the players do what they wanted to do without pressuring them, maybe. Secondly, I learned not to tell the players what they shouldn't do. I was hoping that the thugs are the primary conflict in this town, so it only made sense for them both those NPCs they talked to warn them about the red brands. But I think in doing so, I made that seem like the challenge they needed to tackle immediately. That's not at all what I was trying to achieve. I wanted this to be a backdrop for them as they were exploring and finding other adventure hooks and other side quests. But lesson learned. I think I might have leaned a little too hard onto that and made it seem as though I might have made it seem like I was challenging them to go handle this problem. Third, don't close doors on your players. Due to the scene in the inn, the party was actually kicked out of the inn, and it made sense from a role-playing perspective. Their reckless pride in the inn and their refusal to take the fight outside put the innkeeper, his wife, his 8-year-old son, his patrons, his business, his livelihood, all at risk. And so it only made sense for him to ask them to leave, because those red brands weren't going to go away. They were still a problem. But the downside to that was that I'd closed a lot of those doors. A lot of those that was supposed to be a kind of a hub that had pointers to all these little side quests, and now that door was closed. There will be ways around it. I'm sure they can encounter those same NPCs elsewhere, but that was a really convenient way for them to get a whole lot of great information, a great hub for activity. Finally, I learned I need to be a little more careful about making sure all of the members of the party have a reason for being there. I think the bard is great at role playing. He was so funny. He actually had songs pulled up on his phone ready to go as he was playing different things. It was fantastic, but he didn't really have a connection to the adventure. And the same thing with the monk. They don't really have a reason to be a part of this adventure, and it's going to be a problem. So I think in the future, I'll handle it differently. When new characters get involved, I'll need to be a little more cautious and judicious about how they're going to fit in. Not saying I need to dictate their character to them, but making sure their character makes sense moving forward. Making sure their character is going to be someone that is going to be a part of the story. So, but ultimately, though, we still had fun. Mistakes and all, it was still a blast. Everyone laughed, even with the character deaths. No one was having a bad time. And when they got up to leave, I got several compliments. A lot of folks said they were really enjoying the game. They complimented me on running it and hosting it, and it really meant a lot to hear that they were enjoying it. It really was some great encouragement that I was happy to. I was grateful to receive. So I'm really looking forward to next time. But I would love to hear back from y'all. I'd love to hear what y'all think. What could I have done differently? How have you handled similar problems in the past? Again, thank you so much for your encouragement and the advice you've already given me, and I look forward to the next game. So until then, have a great day, and God bless.